Hey, welcome back to Two Old Geeks Talking. I'm Rob.
I'm Trace.
And today we'll be talking about
Conan.
Conan.
And we're going to talk everything Conan. So we're going to talk comics, we're going to talk movies, we're going to talk games, and then actual books written by Robert E. Howard. So I think my first little taste of Conan was from the Marvel comics.
Okay.
And as a matter of fact, I think it was a Marvel comic you had bought, because being the good brothers that we are, we always shared our comics. So I remember it was one that was written by Roy Thomas, and the art was by Steve Buscemi, and I just really liked it. But I think it was your comic. So it was years later that I actually started collecting them.
Right.
But Marvel was the first one to come out with comics based on Conan. And the first comic come out by Conan, Roy Thomas really kind of pitched it and pushed it to Stan Lee. And they got the rights for Conan for like $150 an issue.
So did Howard have anything to do with the comics?
No, he was already gone. Already gone. Although some of the comics were based on his stories. But Roy Thomas really had a really good feel for Robert E. Howard's writing. Mm-hmm. So it just came out in 1970, and Stan Lee approved it, and it was really popular. And the artist they got for the first issue was a guy named Barry Windsor Smith. I really liked his art. Stan liked his art.
I just like the name, Barry Windsor Smith.
Yeah. It kind of looked like Jack Kirby's art. You can kind of really see Jack Kirby influences. But I just really love that first cover. It really grabs you with the damsel in distress. That's very Conan.
Right.
You get the wizard holding the staff off, and so I mean, they say you can't judge a book by a cover, but a lot of books are bought because of the cover, and certainly a lot of comics are. So yeah, that was a fantastic issue. So it was years later that I got into King Conan comics.
Okay. So
King Conan was written by Roy Thomas again, but it was an older Conan. So Conan had already conquered his foes, and he was over top of a kingdom. And so, this was really before comic book stores. I mean, They didn't have comic book stores when we were a kid.
Right.
They may have had them, but they didn't have them in our area. So we would get these off the spinner racks at a drugstore, or we'd get them off at a grocery store out of the magazine section. And these were quarterly comics, and they were so well written. And I just really fell in love with Conan during the whole King Conan era.
Is that Thrall on the front?
Oh,
Thaw
Famine, yeah.
Okay. Because what I remember most about Conan is the villain. I got a thing for villains, right? And so I think it's awesome that a lot of the Conan villains are still relevant to this day.
Yeah, I mean, Robert E. Howard's before his time, and we'll get into that here in a little bit, and certainly doesn't get the credit he deserves. Well, in issue 20, Conan, or King Conan, become Conan the King. They just rebranded it. And the artwork inside was from a new artist called Mark Silvestri. I don't know how you exactly say it, but he's one of the founding members of Image Comics.
Oh, okay, wow.
And his art was fantastic, and some of his first comic book art can be found in Conan the King. I just really liked it because Conan's typically a wanderer, and he just has a different cast all the time. Mm-hmm. And but with Conan the King, he had a wife named Zenobia, and he had 2 sons and a daughter.
Okay.
It was so him trying to deal with a kingdom and him trying to deal with a family. It just made for a very, very interesting comic. So it was years later that Marvel lost the license to make Conan comics.
Now, did they just forget to renew their?
It come up, and Dark Horse just happened to outbid them, and so.
Wow.
So Dark Horse started coming out with comics, Conan comics, and so they really had a great run on Born on the Battlefield, and they really followed the Robert E. Howard stories. To be honest with you, closer than Marvel did. Marvel adapted a lot of the Robert E. Howard stories, but I really liked Dark Horse's take on Conan. As a matter of fact, the first issue is right here. And they really tried something different, whereas on the inside panels, they wouldn't have an inker. They just had a penciler and a colorer. And so it give the pages a real rough look and not a finished look.
Okay.
And I really like that. But Dark Horse did a fantastic job with Conan. To be honest with you, I kind of hated the fact that they lost the license. But my favorite comic book artist who's ever done Conan, and you'll probably recognize him. You recognize that? Transmetropolitan?
I don't see the name.
Derek Robertson.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
All righty.
Yeah, so the guy that did the art in Transmetropolitan, which you're a huge fan of.
Right. He's your favorite?
Favorite Conan artist?
Right.
Yeah. I mean, nobody draws Conan. I mean, look at that. That's awesome, man. I mean, the details in his work was incredible. I mean, there's been several Conan issues that I bought just because he did the covers. Well, Robert E. Howard's originally stories come out in the late 20s and the early 30s, so they're what's called public domain, which means they've been out so long that nobody really has the right to those anymore. So a company called Ablaze started making Conan comics. Now, they couldn't call it Conan, something about legal issues that I really can't get into, and because I don't know about. But Ablaze started making a Conan comic, and they just called it the Sumerian.
Okay, because that's where Conan was from.
Yeah, and all they did was they just went to the original 17 Robert E. Howard stories, and they've just been adapting those. Nothing new, nothing made up the way Marvel did, or they expanded the universe. But they just concentrate on original stories, and they're uncensored, so they can be as violent or as adult as they want to be. So I've really, really enjoyed those, and they've had some really good covers, and I've been collecting those as well. So Marvel got the rights to print Conan comics again, and I was worried about it because I love Marvel. I was a make mine Marvel type of guy. You were DC growing up, and new Marvel comics. Yeah, the writing's horrible, and I could go into it, but there's really no point in it.
Because Conan was always known for his grittiness, for the way he treated people was not the
best in the world. He was an anti-hero, like the Punisher. So I was really worried when Marvel took back over Conan. But they give the reins to Jason Aaron, and the first 12 issues of the new Conan series, he did a fantastic job.
Is this pre-Disney or post-Disney?
Oh, this is post-Disney.
Oh, wow, okay.
So they're actually making these now, and Jason Aaron's getting ready to come out with a King Conan, which obviously I'm excited about. But he did a real good job of capturing the nitty-grittiness of Conan. And the thing about Conan is there's a term they use now called toxic masculinity, and I guess it's like being too manly. But to me, a man can't be too manly, or a woman can't be too feminine. I mean, that's my generation. You can have your opinion. I certainly have mine. So, but Conan, Conan doesn't care for your toxic masculinity. No,
you should put that on a T-shirt.
Yeah, right.
Conan does not care for your toxic.
I mean, I read some of the novels. So after the comics, I started getting into the novels, and it was some of the Lancer and Acer novels they come out with. But they weren't written by Robert E. Howard. He was already dead. So I started reading these, and to be honest with you, I started getting them because of the amazing covers. So there was this artist called Frank Frazetta.
Oh, yeah.
And he did these Conan covers, and he did paintings for lots of fantasy work back in the day. But like I'd see these covers, and they just capture your imagination, and you just had to go out and get them. And so Frank Frazetta is really the reason I read some Conan novels when I was in high school, and but they still didn't click with me. They still didn't click with me too much. So I went back and read the original Robert E. Howard.
Wow.
And so if you can find this book, you're very fortunate. They're getting hard to find, but it's leather bound. I think it was sold overseas. But it's got all of Robert E. Howard's original 17 novels in there. Now, he wrote for a magazine called Weird Tales. And Robert E. Howard was the first person to come up with a shared universe. So like Marvel does a shared universe, Iron Man movies connect to Thor movies, that connect to Captain America movies, that connect to the Avengers.
Right.
Well, in Robert E. Howard's world, he first started writing Kull, Kull, and that was a predecessor to Conan.
Right.
And he started writing in 1929, and he started making this shared universe and world building in 1929 when he's like in his mid-20s. And the thing is, that's before Robert E. Howard. And that's before J.R.R. Tolkien.
Right.
So Tolkien is often considered the father of modern fantasy.
Oh, see, I've always heard that about Howard, though.
Yeah, but Howard is, to be honest with you, he had monsters and he had wizards and magic, and so he had a fantasy world, and he really created it before Tolkien. And Tolkien read Howard, and Tolkien liked Howard.
Right.
He didn't elaborate on it, but he just said he liked it.
Right.
So if you can get these original 17, it's a really different type of Conan than what is typically presented, especially in the movies. So Conan is not bulked up. He's more sleek and panther-like. He's intelligent. What I liked about Robert E. Howard's writing is he started a story, a Conan story. You knew Conan was going to show up in it, but you might be several pages into it before Conan showed up.
Okay.
He'd be introducing all these other characters, and then Conan walks into the room, and then the story really kicks off. So definitely pick these up if you can. But Howard was really world building. You got Tolkien's Middle Earth. Well, Howard had the Hyborian world. And like I said, Conan shared it with Kull. He shared it with Solomon Kane, and so all his characters lived in the same type of world. And he was a pen pal with Lovecraft, who did the Cthulhu series.
Yeah.
And so they went back and forth, but Howard, he wanted to write fantasy, and he wanted it based in history, but he didn't want to have to do all the research. He didn't want to have to do all the research and try to make sure everything was exactly right. So what he did was he created this little fantasy world of prehistory. If you look at the map of Hyborian world, and I know you can't see it very well on YouTube, but if you go to our Facebook page, you can print out a copy. These dark sections here are areas that got flooded at some point. Well, if you look closely, what's left in the white is modern Europe today. So like say for where Conan was, he was a Cimmerian, that would actually be like Ireland, Scotland area today.
Okay.
And so, yeah, I mean,
he might have actually had like a Baroque accent or something like that.
Yeah. So, I mean, it was like pre-Scotland, all that. It was like that area got flooded.
Cool.
And so after that, after reading the books, I just really, really fell in love with Robert E. Howard, and I just don't think even today he gets the acknowledgement that he should. So let's talk about the movies.
All righty.
So when the first Conan movie come out, it was rated R, and we couldn't go see it because we were too young to go see it. And our parents were not going to take us to see a rated R movie.
I still don't even think I've seen the rated R version yet.
Oh, you haven't?
No,
I've
just seen the television version. Yeah.
And but yeah, so it starred Arnold Schwarzenegger, and it wasn't his first movie, but it was one of his first movies. And the guy that made it, named John Milas, he said, look, if Schwarzenegger didn't exist, we would have had the building for the movie.
Right.
And even though he doesn't look exactly like Robert E. Howard's Conan, and even though the story is a little different than some of Robert E. Howard's story, they really did a good job at capturing the feel of Conan.
I heard Arnold actually had to lose weight for that.
Yeah, he lost 30 pounds because they didn't want him bulked up. They wanted him to look strong, but they didn't want him to look bodybuilder strong.
Right.
Where you're ripped up, you can see all your veins and things. And so he put a lot of time and effort, and that first movie was real gritty and violent. At the time, it was considered one of the more violent movies around. In fact, it got a rated X rating several times before they cut it up enough and edited it enough to where they can make it a rated R movie. So, like I said, I've watched that movie. I can quote that movie. When that movie comes out, it's great. First of all, we finally got to see it on VHS. We had to rent a VHS player and plug it up. The lights was out and we're watching it, and it comes up on the screen, "That which does not kill you makes you stronger," by Nietzsche. So that was like the first little quote on there. And then you hear Mako or however you say his name. He comes in there like, between the times that the oceans drank Atlantis and the rise of the sons of Arias, there was an age undreamed of, and unto this Conan. Well, he did the voice of Aku, which my grandson and myself were big fans of Samurai Jack. And he did one of the voices inside Avatar: The Last Airbender. And he's done tons of cameo roles.
Right. He's been in everything.
Yeah, but he just had a fantastic voice. And then James Earl Jones.
Right.
As Thulsa Doom. Oh, man.
Now, see, when I think of Thulsa Doom, I automatically revert back to the comic books and think of the guy with the skull face.
Right. Well, and that was our first introduction to that villain. But what John Milius wanted to do is he wanted to make Thulsa Doom appear. He was supposed to be from a lost race of Atlanteans, where Atlantis had sunk. Right. So he puts these blue contact lenses into James Earl Jones, and he straightens his hair, and he just has this real booming voice. I mean, he's just like, he just made a fantastic villain. It wasn't a villain of brawn; it was a villain of brains. Right. And so that was good and opposite of what Schwarzenegger's Conan was like. And then the soundtrack of that movie was incredible. A guy named Basil Polidorus wrote it. And it's just real primal, lots of drum beats, chains rattling, orchestra music. Just sounds like, it just goes with the movie perfect. And I just listen to that soundtrack all the time. I mean, if I had to build a Mount Rushmore of soundtrack composers, you'd have John Williams.
All right,
of course. So, that Star Wars and Jaws and Indiana Jones. And so you have Howard Shore, the Lord of the Rings trilogy and the Hobbit trilogy. And then you'd have Basil Polidorus on there. Oh, man, because that was great. And who would be the next one? Because we need 4. Maybe Vangelis from Blade Runner?
Nah, Weird Out. No.
That's pretty good. That's pretty good. But anyway, so the movie is great. So what do? Man, it made money. It made tons of money. So what do? They make another one.
Right. Why not?
But you know what they do? They make a PG.
Oh, see, that, yeah.
So, I mean, you've got E.T. was out. And E.T. had made tons of money because it was PG. So some brain at some movie studio thought, you know what? Let's make Conan PG and it'll make a lot of money.
Right, that way we can get a larger audience.
Yeah, there's certain things that should not be PG.
Right.
And there's certain things that shouldn't be rated R. Conan should be rated R. So they took, first of all, John Milius wouldn't touch it, the guy that did the first movie. He said he was unavailable. Yeah, he was unavailable, all right. He looked at the script and he was like, no, I'm good. So they had Schwarzenegger bulk up. So he was in Mr. Universe form. So he's all cut up, all brown, all oiled up, all veined up. So it didn't even look like he did in the first movie. And like I said, they made it PG. You can't do that with the Conan movie. It was ridiculous. In fact, I watched it one time. I've never watched it again to this day.
Oh, wow.
Because I just want that to fade from my memory, like the Star Wars sequels.
I'm trying to even recall who the villain was in that one.
It was some wizard, and I think he turned into an ape or something. But I can remember one scene where he had
with the horn. They put the horn in.
Oh yeah, that was actually Andre the Giant in a suit.
Are you serious?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it was Andre. But yeah, it was horrible. Don't ever watch that movie. Conan the Destroyer. Don't watch that. So then they decided to make, that was like back in the 80s. So they decided they're going to reboot it, and so they get Jason Momoa to be Conan in 2011's Conan the Barbarian. Didn't even change his name, just Conan the Barbarian. And so, to be honest with you, Jason Momoa, clean shaven with long hair, was very close to Howard's.
The drawings, yeah.
To Howard's Conan. Now Conan had a hairy chest. Now we show him with a shaved chest. There's nothing wrong with a hairy chest. Now I got one myself. But anyway, I mean the thing is that Jason Momoa made a great Conan, but they screwed it up because it just become a CGI jizz fest. It was terrible. Yeah. Oh, it was horrible.
I've never even seen it.
Yeah, I mean, the story, I mean, if you watch the first bit of it, you know, Conan was born on the battlefield, and it shows him being born on the battlefield. He was son of a blacksmith.
Okay.
And so it's not bad at all. As a matter of fact, they followed some of the Dark Horse comic stories. And then, but whenever it gets about midway, it just really runs off the rails. It just really runs off the rails. And that's a shame because I would have liked to have more Conan movies. Who knows how long it'll be before they make another one or if they make another one. So, as far as video games in Conan, well, there was Age of Conan. It was an MMO years ago, super popular. And if you can get on YouTube and find the soundtrack of that, they did a great job on that soundtrack. They did a great job on that soundtrack.
Compared to what?
Compared to the original Conan movie with Schwarzenegger. They, to be honest with you, they probably looked at Basil Polidorus' soundtrack, and they tried to use it as a template and made one for the game. Funcom was the company that made it, and they really did a good job.
8-bit music like.
Oh no! It wasn't like that. No, oh, it was fantastic. Oh, you need to listen to it. Yeah, it makes you want to go out with a broadsword and slay something. So then they come out with the Conan survival game, which Conan Exiles. And it's okay, but I'm not really into survival games, and it's an MMO too, and I'm not into MMO. But Funcom has a license to make future Conan games. Heard a rumor they're going to make a single-player, open-world Conan game, and that would be incredible.
Yeah, that would be cool.
I would love it. I'd love it. Well, like say games like Skyrim, they've got so many mods. You know, I can download Conan music. I can download the Basil Polidorus soundtrack, and then I can make my character look like Conan.
Okay.
And then you can add ruins and stuff in the background, and you can like get Conan weapons and stuff from the Schwarzenegger. Oh yeah, it's great. It's just like you're making your own Conan game. But as far as our giveaway, do you have anything you want to add about Conan?
Well, I had a question, just one question. Okay, first of all, let's go back to the villains.
Okay.
My favorite villain, and it's even still prevalent today, is the Shumagortha or Shuma. It's a big eyeball with the tentacles.
Yeah.
He was actually in one of the newest What If shows.
Oh yeah, was he?
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
And he's been in video games, and they've used him. He started out as a Conan villain, and that's what I think. Several of the villains have actually shown up more than Conan has in some.
Yeah, they actually Marvel took Conan and brought him into the Marvel universe to where he was actually fighting alongside Captain America and everything. I didn't read any of that. Certain things shouldn't go together.
Don't forget the He-Man crossover.
Oh, did Conan have a He-Man crossover?
Yeah. Okay, so my last question is Red Sonja a spinoff of Conan?
Yes and no.
Okay.
So Robert E. Howard had a character called Red Sonja, and it was spelt different with a J instead of a Y.
Okay.
And so she appeared in the novels, and she was fleshed out by Marvel Comics, and she had her own comic. Well, whenever the lawyers got their hands on Conan and started breaking it up, somehow or another, that Red Sonja character, which the character he's talking about, is right here, and she's drawn here by Frank Cho, who's a fantastic artist. Oh my gosh, he's a good artist. But anyway, he draws women really good.
Right.
But anyway, I digress. But actually, like Dynamite owns the rights to Red Sonja, and then Marvel owns the rights to Conan, and they're both in the same world, and occasionally they'll do crossovers. And so they reference the same places on the map, the same land and the same people.
See, that's what confused me.
But really they're owned legally by two separate entities right now.
Okay.
So before we go on, let's see. The winner of our giveaway on our werewolf video is Crypt Keeper.
Ooh, that's a good name.
Yeah. You know, a lot of policemen and firemen and EMT workers, they get a lot of credit, but we don't give too much credit to our crypt keepers.
Right. Somebody's got to do it.
Yeah. I mean, who's going to keep our crypts if it's not for the crypt keepers?
Right.
So contact us, Crypt Keeper,
See, I'm always thinking of the little skinny, scrawny little guy that talks really weird.
And we will get you your werewolf merchandise. Now today's Conan giveaway, it's a nice one. So we've got a lot of Robert E. Howard stories that's been converted over. We've got Dark Horse's God in a Bowl, which was in issues 10 and 11 of Dark Horse's Conan. We've got The Tower of the Elephant, which is one of the most popular Robert E. Howard stories. It's not my favorite one. My favorite one's probably, I'll let you know here in a second. So Tower of the Elephant, which was in 20, 21, 22 of Dark Horse. And then you also have Rogues in a House, which is another Robert E. Howard story that was converted over in 41, 42, and 43, and 44 of Dark Horse. Then you have the Robert E. Howard story, Jewels of Galar, and it's in a mini-series, and there is 3 issues of that. And then People of Black Circle, that's one of my favorite Conan stories, that and Red Nails. And this is the new Ablaze comic, and we have the 3 issues that encompass that. And
but wait, there's more.
But wait, there's more. Marvel come out with a king-size Conan.
Okay.
And they had a bunch of different artists write little Conan short stories. And so I'll add that in there as well. So to be eligible, you got to be a what?
Subscriber.
Yeah. And then what do you got to do?
Like and comment.
There you go. There you go. And if you get a chance to pick this up, guys, if you like fantasy novels, pick it up. They're a bunch of short stories. They're easy to read. You can get through them pretty quick. And a lot of people accuse Robert E. Howard of being racist. I don't know if he was racist or not. But his writings are not. I mean, some of his characters are in like the deepest, darkest part of Africa, and he describes them, and they're like, well, he's being racist. No, he's not being racist. I've read all these multiple times. There's no racism in there. And he had a lot of strong female characters, too, so... if you like alpha males and you don't like beta males, check out Conan. All right, man. Hey, you done?
I'm done.
All right, I'm done.